I suppose I should have seen it coming. You see, when you reach a certain age, the world starts moving in ways that feel foreign to you. The internet, smartphones, online banking. It all happened so fast. One day I was writing checks at my kitchen table, and the next, everyone expected me to manage my entire life through a screen. My name is Helen. I'm 70 years old, and until last year I lived what most would call a quiet life in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It's a beautiful coastal town, where colonial houses line narrow streets, and you can smell the salt air on foggy mornings. I'd been in the same house for 35 years. My husband Robert and I bought it when the neighborhood was less fashionable, when young families could still afford to live near the water. After Robert passed 3 winters ago, the house felt too big, too empty. But I couldn't bring myself to leave. You see, his presence was still there in small ways. The creak of the 3rd stair, the way morning light hit his reading chair, the garden he'd tended with such care. That's when Brenda moved in next door. I first saw her on a Tuesday morning in April. She was directing movers, wearing designer jeans and a crisp white shirt, her blonde hair pulled back in one of those effortless ponytails younger women seem to master. She looked to be in her mid-40s, confident in that way successful people often are. "Hello there," she called out when she spotted me watching from my front porch. Her smile was warm, genuine. "I'm Brenda. Looks like we're going to be neighbors." I introduced myself, and we chatted over the low fence between our properties. She was divorced, she said, starting fresh, working in financial consulting, whatever that meant. She had an easy laugh and a way of making you feel like you were the most interesting person in the world. "I love these old neighborhoods," she said, gesturing at the historic houses. "There's so much character here, so much history." I suppose I was flattered by her attention. You see, when you're 70 and widowed, you sometimes feel invisible. Your children call less frequently, busy with their own lives. Friends move to Florida or assisted living. The world spins on without much need for your participation. But Brenda seemed different. She'd wave every morning when she left for work. She'd stop to chat when she saw me in the garden. One evening, about 2 weeks after she moved in, she knocked on my door with a plate of homemade cookies. "I hope you don't mind," she said. "I made too many, and I remembered you mentioning you have a sweet tooth." We sat in my kitchen, eating cookies and drinking tea. The conversation flowed easily. She asked about the neighborhood, about my life, about Robert. She listened with what seemed like genuine interest when I talked about my years as a school librarian, about my children who lived on the West Coast. "You must miss them," she said softly. "I do, but we talk on the computer now. Video calls, though I'm not very good with all that technology." That's when she leaned forward, her eyes bright with helpfulness. "Oh, I could help you with that. I'm quite good with computers. It's really not as complicated as it seems." I suppose I should have politely declined, but the truth was, I did need help. My son had set up online banking for me before he moved to Seattle, but I'd been too intimidated to use it. Bills were piling up because I couldn't figure out how to pay them electronically. The bank kept sending notices about going paperless, and I didn't understand what they wanted me to do. "I wouldn't want to impose," I said. "Nonsense, what are neighbors for?" Brenda's smile was so warm, so reassuring. "How about I come over this weekend and we'll tackle it together? I'll bring my laptop and we'll get you all set up." I felt such relief. You see, admitting you need help with basic things is humiliating when you've been independent your whole life. But Brenda made it seem normal, like she was just lending a cup of sugar. That Saturday, she arrived promptly at 10, laptop under her arm and that same bright smile on her face. She was patient as she showed me how to log into my bank account, how to check balances, how to pay bills online. "See, you're a natural," she said as I successfully paid my electric bill. "You just needed someone to show you the ropes." Over the next few weeks, Our Saturday sessions became routine. Brenda would arrive with her laptop and sometimes a coffee cake or fresh fruit. She helped me set up online accounts for utilities, showed me how to shop online, even helped me video call my grandchildren. "You're opening up a whole new world for me," I told her one afternoon. She squeezed my hand. "Helen, you remind me so much of my mother. She passed away 2 years ago, I suppose. I suppose helping you makes me feel close to her again." Her eyes misted over and I found myself comforting her. You see, grief recognizes grief. We sat there in my kitchen, 2 women who'd lost people we loved, finding solace in unexpected friendship. Looking back now, I wonder if that moment of vulnerability was calculated. But at the time, all I felt was gratitude. Here was this successful, capable woman who chose to spend her Saturdays helping an old widow navigate the modern world. I suppose I was lonely. I suppose I wanted to believe in the kindness of strangers. I suppose I should have paid more attention to the little things. But when you're 70, you get used to doubting yourself before doubting others. The changes started small. Passwords I thought I remembered suddenly wouldn't work. I'd sit at my computer, typing carefully, checking each letter, but the screen would flash red. "Invalid password." "Oh, Helen," Brenda would say with that patient smile when I called her over. "Remember, we changed it last week for security. You wrote it down in your notebook." And there it would be, in my handwriting, though I couldn't recall writing it. You see, that's the thing about getting older. You question your memory before you question someone else's honesty. Brenda's visits became more frequent. She'd pop over after work with Chinese takeout. "I ordered too much," she'd say, though I noticed she always seemed to order my favorites. We'd eat at my kitchen table while she helped me with various online tasks. "You really should update your Amazon password," she mentioned one evening, gesturing at my screen. "Using the same password for everything is dangerous." She was right, of course. Robert had always handled these things, and I'd used his birthday for everything, April 15, 1948. Not very creative, I suppose. "Let me help you create something more secure," Brenda offered. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "There, I've written it down for you." She tucked the paper into my password notebook, a floral-covered journal I'd started keeping by the computer. I noticed she knew exactly where I kept it, but then, we'd been doing this for months now. Strange charges began appearing on my credit card statement. Small things, $23.47 here, $45.92 there. Online purchases, the statement said, though I couldn't remember buying anything. "It's probably automatic renewals," Brenda explained when I showed her. "You know how these websites trick you into subscriptions. Let me check your email." She scrolled through my inbox with practiced ease. "See, here's a Netflix subscription, and this looks like antivirus software. These companies are sneaky, aren't they?" I nodded, though something nagged at me. I didn't remember signing up for Netflix. But Brenda was already canceling the subscriptions, her face focused in concentration. "There," she said. "All taken care of. You have to be so careful online, Helen." One afternoon, I found her in my study when I came back from the bathroom. She was standing by my filing cabinet, my tax folder in her hands. "Oh," she looked startled. "I'm so sorry. I was looking for a pen and I knocked some papers off your desk. I was just putting them back." It seemed reasonable. The desk was cluttered with mail I'd been meaning to sort. You see, after Robert died, paperwork had become overwhelming. Bills, insurance forms, tax documents, they multiplied like weeds in an untended garden. "Actually," Brenda said, still holding the folder, "when was the last time you filed your taxes? I could help you organize all this." I felt that familiar mix of embarrassment and relief. My son usually helped with taxes, but he'd been so busy this year. That's too much to ask, I said. Nonsense. What else do I have to do on weekends? She laughed. My social life isn't exactly thriving in a new town. So we spent the next Saturday organizing my papers. Brenda was methodical, creating neat piles, making lists. She had a small scanner she'd brought from home. Digital copies, she explained, in case anything gets lost. I made us lunch while she worked. When I returned to the study, she was photographing documents with her phone. The scanner's being fussy, she said. Phone cameras are just as good these days. That should have been a red flag, I suppose, but she was helping me tackle a task I'd been dreading. The relief outweighed any whisper of suspicion. My neighbor on the other side, Mrs. Chen, mentioned something odd a few weeks later. We were both tending our gardens when she called over the fence. Helen, I saw Brenda at your mailbox yesterday. I thought you were home. I was at my doctor's appointment, I said. Mrs. Chen frowned. She was there for quite a while, looking through mail, it seemed like. Oh, she was probably just clearing the junk mail for me, I said. She's been so helpful. But Mrs. Chen's expression remained troubled. Just be careful, Helen. My daughter says identity theft is everywhere these days. I laughed it off, but that night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Brenda at my mailbox, about passwords. I couldn't remember changing, about charges I didn't recognize. The next morning, Brenda knocked on my door with fresh blueberry muffins. I was up early baking, she said. Thought you might enjoy these. We sat in morning sunlight, eating muffins and chatting about her work, about a man she'd started dating, about normal things. She seemed so genuine, so kind. I felt guilty for my midnight suspicions. You look tired, she observed. Everything okay? Oh, just one of those restless nights, I said. You know how it is. She reached across the table and patted my hand. I worry about you, Helen. Living alone, managing everything by yourself. Promise me you'll let me know if you need anything. Anything at all. Her concern seemed so sincere. You see, when someone shows you kindness consistently, it becomes harder to imagine they could wish you harm. The human heart wants to believe in goodness. But that night, I did something I hadn't done before. I checked my credit card statement online by myself, slowly typing in the password from my notebook. There were more charges I didn't recognize. A hotel in Boston, a designer clothing website, restaurant bills from places I'd never been. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. The total was climbing, almost $3,000 in charges I couldn't explain. I reached for the phone to call Brenda, then stopped. Something, maybe Mrs. Chen's warning, maybe my own buried instinct made me hesitate. Instead, I wrote down all the suspicious charges in a separate notebook, one I tucked into my bedroom drawer. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself there was surely an explanation. You see, I suppose, I wasn't ready to believe that the woman who brought me muffins. You see, I suppose I wasn't ready to believe that the woman who brought me muffins and helped me video chat with my grandchildren could be stealing from me. The mind does gymnastics to avoid such conclusions. But the evidence kept mounting. A week after I'd discovered those charges, an envelope arrived from a credit card company I'd never heard of. Capital Premier Rewards. The return address was legitimate looking, the logo professional. Inside was a statement showing a balance of $8,742. I stared at it, my morning coffee growing cold. This had to be a mistake. I didn't have a Capital Premier Rewards card. I'd had the same 2 credit cards for 20 years, my Bank of America Visa and an old Macy's card I rarely used. My first instinct was to call Brenda. She'd know what to do, but something made me pause. Instead, I called the number on the statement. Thank you for calling Capital Premier, a cheerful voice said. Please enter your account number. I fumbled with the numbers, my fingers unsteady on the phone keys. After what felt like an eternity of menu options, I reached a human being. "I received a statement, but I don't think I have an account with you," I explained. "Let me look that up for you, Mrs. Winters. Can you verify your social security number?" I hesitated. Robert had always warned about giving out personal information over the phone, but this was the number on the statement, so I provided it. "Yes, I show an account opened 2 months ago. The application was submitted online. Current balance is $8,742. Would you like to make a payment?" "I didn't open this account," I said, my voice shaking. "There must be a mistake." "I see. Let me transfer you to our fraud department." But before the transfer could go through, my doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see Brenda's blonde ponytail. I hung up, telling myself I'd call back later. "Helen," she breezed in with her usual energy. "I brought lunch. That new Thai place gave me way too much pad Thai." We ate in my kitchen while she chattered about her work, a difficult client, the man she was dating who seemed to be losing interest. Normal friend conversation. The credit card statement lay hidden in my desk drawer, burning like a guilty secret. "You seem distracted," she observed. "Everything all right?" I suppose I've never been good at hiding my emotions. I received something odd in the mail, a credit card statement for a card I don't have. Her face immediately showed concern. "Oh no, let me see it." I retrieved the statement, watching her expression as she studied it. Her frown deepened. "This is definitely fraud," she said. "Probably from one of those data breaches you hear about. Hackers get your information and open accounts. It's happening to everyone these days." "Should I call the police?" "Well, first you need to call the credit card company and dispute it. Want me to help? I've dealt with this before with my mother." Relief flooded through me. Of course. Fraud happened all the time. It wasn't personal. It wasn't someone I knew. Brenda took charge, calling the credit card company, navigating the phone tree with expertise. She put it on speaker so I could hear. "Yes, Mrs. Winters is a victim of identity theft," she explained to the representative. "She never opened this account. No, she doesn't want to file a police report yet. She just wants the account closed and the charges removed." I started to object. Maybe I should file a police report, but Brenda muted the phone. "Trust me, police reports just complicate things. Let's get this closed first." The representative agreed to close the account and send paperwork. Brenda hung up, looking satisfied. "See, all handled, though we should probably check if there are other accounts. Do you know your credit report?" I shook my head. Another thing Robert had managed that remained mysterious to me. "Let's check online," she suggested. "Better to catch these things early." We sat at my computer, Brenda's fingers flying across the keyboard. She navigated to a website, entering information I couldn't quite follow. "Oh dear," she said. "There are 2 more accounts, a Discover card and something called Lending Tree." My heart sank. 3 fraudulent accounts. How was this possible? "Don't panic," Brenda soothed. "We'll dispute them all. But Helen, we need to freeze your credit so no one can open more accounts. And you should change all your passwords again. Use something completely different this time." She spent the next 2 hours on the phone, disputing accounts, setting up fraud alerts. I sat beside her, feeling increasingly helpless and grateful in equal measure. What would I do without her? "There," she finally said. "All disputed. They'll send you letters confirming the accounts are closed. Just forward them to me when they arrive, and I'll make sure everything's properly handled." "Forward them to you?" "Oh, just so I can keep track. You know how these companies are. Sometimes they forget to close things. I'll make sure they follow through." It made sense. Everything she said always made sense. Over the next few weeks, more statements arrived. A Sears card, a Home Depot credit account, something called Care Credit. Each time Brenda would appear, handle the calls, dispute the charges. She kept a folder of all the correspondence. "For your records," she explained, "in case you need to reference anything later." I noticed she often took photos of the documents with her phone. "Digital backup," she'd say with a wink. "Can't be too careful." One afternoon, my son David called from Seattle. "Mom, I got a weird call from Experian. Something about fraud alerts on your credit. What's going on?" I explained about the fraudulent accounts, how Brenda was helping me resolve everything. "Brenda, your neighbor," he sounded skeptical. "Mom, maybe I should fly out and help you deal with this." "Don't be silly. Brenda has it all under control. She's been wonderful." "But Mom, this is serious. Identity theft can." "David, please, I'm handling it. Brenda knows what she's doing." There was a pause. "Okay, but promise me you'll file a police report. And don't give this Brenda any of your personal information." "Of course not," I said, even as I remembered all the passwords she'd helped me create, all the accounts she'd accessed, all the documents she'd photographed. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet living room, unease creeping through me like fog off the harbor. But when I looked out my window and saw Brenda's car in her driveway, saw her wave as she got out with grocery bags, the feeling dissipated. She was my friend. She was helping me. The fraud was coming from somewhere else, some faceless hacker in a foreign country, some data breach at a company I'd never heard of. I had to believe that. You see, the alternative was too terrible to contemplate. That someone who sat in my kitchen, who knew about my loneliness, who brought me muffins and Thai food. No, I pushed the thought away. Some things were too painful to believe, even when the evidence was mounting like bills on my desk. Tax season arrived with its familiar dread. April in New Hampshire meant daffodils in the garden and forms I didn't understand. David usually helped, but he was in the middle of a big project at work. "I can file for an extension, Mom," he offered during our weekly call. No, I'll manage." I didn't mention that Brenda had already offered to help. Something about David's tone when he spoke about her made me hesitant to bring her up. That Saturday, Brenda arrived with her laptop and a box of my favorite Danish pastries from the bakery downtown. "Ready to tackle the tax monster?" she asked cheerfully. We set up in my dining room, papers spread across the table Robert had built 40 years ago. I'd gathered everything W-2s, 1099s from retirement accounts, receipts for medical expenses, property tax statements. "You're so organized," Brenda praised, though we both knew it was more about my fear of the IRS than any natural tidiness. She worked methodically, entering numbers into tax software on her laptop. I sat beside her, trying to follow along, but the screen moved too quickly. "I'll need your social secure." "ID number," she said, "and Robert's for the tax records." I recited them. You see, after months of her help, giving Brenda such information felt as natural as sharing it with my own children. "Now, your bank routing number for the direct deposit of your refund." I retrieved my checkbook, pointing out the numbers at the bottom. She entered them carefully. "Perfect. Oh, looks like you're getting a nice refund. Almost $3,000. "Really? That seems high." "Well, with your medical expenses and property taxes, it makes sense." She turned the laptop toward me. "See, all legitimate deductions." I pretended to understand the numbers on the screen. Truth was, tax forms might as well have been written in Sanskrit. "I just need to make copies of these documents for your records," Brenda said, gathering the papers. "My scanner's in the car. Give me 5 minutes." She left with an armload of my most sensitive documents. Through the window, I watched her sit in her car, but I couldn't see what she was doing. The angle was wrong, and the sun created a glare on her windshield. I made us fresh coffee while I waited. You see, that's what trust does. It makes you brew coffee while someone sits in their car with your entire financial life. She returned 15 minutes later, slightly flushed. Sorry, the scanner was being temperamental, but I got everything. We continued working. She had me sign forms explaining each one briefly. This is your federal return. This is state. This one's for the healthcare credit. I signed where she pointed, trusting her expertise. She'd helped me with so much already. Why would taxes be different? Now we just need to set up your online tax account so you can track your refund, she said. Let me create a secure password for you. Her fingers danced across the keyboard. Another password went into my notebook, in her neat handwriting this time. She'd started writing them for me, saying my handwriting was sometimes hard for me to read later. Such a thoughtful detail. All done, she announced. Your returns are filed. You should see your refund in about 3 weeks. We celebrated with Danish pastries and coffee. She stayed for another hour, chatting about her work, asking about my grandchildren. Normal Saturday afternoon conversation between friends. But while we talked, her phone kept buzzing with notifications. She'd glance at it, type quickly, then return to our conversation. Sorry, she said after the 5th interruption. Work emergency. A client's account got compromised. On a Saturday. Financial crime doesn't take weekends off, she said with a rueful smile. Actually, weekends are when a lot of fraud happens. People aren't watching their accounts as closely. How ironic those words seem now. After she left, I felt the familiar mix of accomplishment and exhaustion that came with completing difficult tasks. The taxes were done. The fraudulent accounts were being handled. I had a friend who cared enough to spend her Saturdays helping an old woman navigate modern life. That night, I called David to tell him the taxes were filed. You did them yourself. He sounded surprised and pleased. Well, Brenda helped. Silence. Then, Mom, you didn't give her your social security number, did you? She needed it for the tax forms. Mom, his voice carried that tone adult children get when they think their parents are being foolish. Please tell me you didn't let her file your taxes. David, she's been nothing but helpful. You don't know her like I do. Did she use her computer or yours? Hers, but. So you have no record of what was actually filed, no copy of what was submitted. I thought of the papers Brenda had taken to scan. She made copies for me. She'll bring them over. Mom, promise me something. Ask her for those copies tomorrow. And check your bank account regularly for that refund. The exact amount she said. You're being paranoid. Maybe, but humor me, please. I agreed, mostly to end the conversation. David didn't understand. He hadn't seen Brenda's kindness, her patience, the way she made me feel capable instead of old and foolish. But his words nagged at me. That night, I tried to log into my bank account. The password didn't work. I tried 3 times before the system locked me out. I checked my notebook. The password was there in Brenda's handwriting. Maybe I was typing it wrong. My fingers weren't as steady as they used to be. I'd ask Brenda to help me reset it tomorrow. She'd know what to do. She always did. Looking back now, I realized that was the day everything truly unraveled. While I sat in my dining room, trusting her with Danish pastries and coffee, she was photographing every document she needed. Social security numbers, bank accounts, tax information, a complete financial blueprint of my life. But I didn't know that then. All I knew was that my taxes were done, my friend had helped me again, and I could stop worrying about the IRS. You see, I suppose when someone is robbing you blind, they make sure you're looking in the wrong direction. And I was. I was looking at fraudulent credit cards and mysterious charges, never realizing the real theft was happening right in front of me, disguised as help, wrapped in friendship, sweetened with Danish pastries from my favorite bakery. 3 weeks passed. Spring arrived fully in Portsmouth, with tourists beginning to wander the historic streets and boats returning to the harbor. I spent my days in the garden, coaxing Robert's roses back to life, trying to ignore the growing stack of mail I was afraid to open. The tax refund hadn't arrived. When I mentioned this to Brenda, she waved it off. Government's always slow. Give it another week. But it wasn't the missing refund that finally opened my eyes. It was a phone call on a Thursday afternoon in May. I was making tea when the phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer. Mrs. Helen Winters, a man's cheerful voice. This is Brad from Lexington Motors in Boston. I'm calling to confirm your delivery appointment tomorrow for your new RX 350. I nearly dropped the phone. I'm sorry, what? Your Lexus RX 350. Pearl white with the premium package. You're scheduled for delivery tomorrow at 2 p.m. Will that still work for you? There must be a mistake. I didn't buy a car. Silence. Then, carefully, Ma'am, I show here that you completed the purchase online last week. The loan was approved through our financing partner. Down payment of $15,000 was processed from your account. $15,000. I haven't. My legs felt weak. I sank into a kitchen chair. I drive a 2010 Honda Civic. I didn't buy a Lexus. Mrs. Winters, I think you should come down to the dealership. Bring identification. We need to sort this out immediately. I can't drive to Boston. My voice sounded strange, distant. I don't. Is the car there at your dealership? No, ma'am. According to our records, you requested delivery too. I heard papers rustling. 425 Meridian Street in East Boston. Is that not your address? No, I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I see. His cheerful tone had vanished. Mrs. Winters, I'm going to transfer you to our finance manager. I think you may be a victim of identity theft. The word hit me like cold water. Identity theft. The very thing Brenda had been helping me navigate. The very thing she'd been protecting me from. The finance manager, a woman named Patricia, was kind but thorough. She asked questions I couldn't answer. When had I applied for the loan? What was my login information for their website? Had I given anyone access to my financial information? The down payment came from your Bank of America account, she said. $15,000 transferred electronically. That's impossible. I don't even know how to transfer money electronically. Mrs. Winters, you need to call your bank immediately. And the police. This is serious fraud. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet kitchen, staring at the phone. $15,000. How could someone take $15,000 without me knowing? With shaking hands, I called Bank of America. After an eternity of menu options and security questions, I reached a representative. I need to check my account balance, I said. Certainly. I show your checking account has a current balance of $247.83. That can't be right. I should have over $20,000. Let me look at recent transactions. A pause. I show several large transfers over the past month. A transfer of $15,000 to Lexington Motors. A transfer of $3,000 to Capital One. Several transfers to various credit card companies totaling approximately $8,500. The room spun. I gripped the phone. I didn't make those transfers. Ma'am, they were all completed online using your credentials, from your registered IP address. My what? From your home computer, ma'am, using your login information. My home computer, where Brenda and I had sat so many Saturdays, where she'd helped me with passwords, with accounts, with everything. I need to freeze my account, I said. Certainly. But ma'am, if these were fraudulent transfers, you need to file a police report immediately. After freezing the account, I sat at my kitchen table, trying to make sense of it all. The fraudulent credit cards, the mysterious charges, the tax refund that never came, and now a luxury car I'd never bought, paid for with money stolen from my account. I thought about calling Brenda. She'd know what to do, she always. The thought stopped cold. She always knew what to do. She was always there, ready to help, ready with solutions. Ready with her laptop and her passwords and her helpful smile. You see, I suppose the truth had been staring at me for months, but I'd been too grateful, too lonely, too trusting to see it. Every password she'd created, she knew. Every account she'd helped. Me access, she could access. Every document she'd photographed for my records had given her everything she needed. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting, and walked to the window. Brenda's car was in her driveway. As I watched, she came out carrying shopping bags, designer store logos. She loaded them into her car, her new car, I realized. When had she gotten a new car? She looked up and saw me at the window. Smiled and waved, that same warm smile that had fooled me for so long. I didn't wave back, I couldn't. I just stood there, seeing her clearly for the first time. Not a friend, not a helpful neighbor, but someone who had studied me like a mark, who had seen my vulnerability and exploited it with surgical precision. The phone rang. I let it ring. It was probably another creditor, another company wanting payment for something I'd never bought. Tomorrow, I would call the police. Tomorrow, I would call David and admit he'd been right. Tomorrow, I would begin the long process of reclaiming my identity, my money, my life. But tonight, I stood at my window, watching the woman who'd stolen from me carry her shopping bags inside, and wondered how I could have been so blind. How kindness could mask such cruelty. How friendship could be such an elaborate lie. You see, I suppose when someone shows you exactly what you want to see, you don't look for what's hidden beneath. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Brenda's smile, heard her voice saying, "Trust me, Helen." By dawn, I'd made a decision. Before I called anyone, police, David, anyone, I needed to know the full extent of what she'd done. I made coffee with shaking hands and sat at my computer. The password to my credit monitoring service was in my notebook, in Brenda's neat handwriting. The irony wasn't lost on me, using her passwords to uncover her theft. What I found made me physically ill. 23 credit accounts in my name. 23. Credit cards, personal loans, store cards, even a line of credit against my house. My house. The home Robert and I had paid off 15 years ago now had a $75,000 lien against it. The total debt was staggering. $237,000. I ran to the bathroom and was sick. $200,000. How was that possible? How had she managed to borrow against my life to that extent? But as I printed page after page of evidence, the how became clear. She had everything: my social security number, my tax returns showing my assets, my bank information, copies of my driver's license and passport from when she'd helped me renew them online. You see, I'd handed her my entire identity, piece by piece, wrapped in gratitude and tied with a bow of loneliness. The credit report showed when each account had been opened. The first one, that Capital Premier card, had been opened just 2 weeks after she'd started helping me with my computer. While I was still marveling at her kindness, she was already stealing from me. I spent the morning creating a spreadsheet, my librarian's instinct for organization taking over. Account names, numbers, balances, dates opened. The pattern was clear. She'd started small, testing the waters with a few thousand here and there. Then, as my trust grew, so did her boldness. The latest loan, taken out just last week, was for $50,000. My phone rang constantly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I understood everything. I found the tax documents on the IRS website, using the login Brenda had created. My refund hadn't been $3,000. It had been $11,000, a result of some creative deductions she'd added. And it hadn't been direct deposited to my account. The routing number she'd entered belonged to a different bank entirely. She'd stolen my tax refund while I sat beside her, offering her Danish pastries. By noon, I'd filled a folder with evidence. Bank statements showing transfers I'd never made. Credit applications with my electronic signature. She'd taught me how to sign documents electronically, remember. Delivery addresses for purchases that weren't my home. That East Boston address where the Lexus was supposed to be delivered, I looked it up. It was a mail forwarding service. I was studying a credit card statement showing purchases at Nordstrom, Saks, luxury stores I'd never set foot in, when movement outside caught my eye. Brenda was in her driveway, loading suitcases into her car. Suitcases. She was leaving. Panic shot through me. If she left, would I ever recover my money? Would the police be able to find her? Without thinking, I grabbed my folder of evidence and hurried outside. Not to confront her, I wasn't that brave. But to see her license plate, to write it down, to have something concrete to give the police. Helen, she spotted me immediately, that bright smile flashing. Perfect timing. I was about to come say goodbye. Goodbye. My voice sounded strange. Last-minute work trip, flying to Miami for a conference. These financial technology things are S. Oh, boring but necessary. She laughed, that easy laugh I'd once found so charming. Could you keep an eye on my house? Maybe water my plants if I'm gone more than a week. A week. She was running, and she wanted me to water her plants. Of course, I heard myself say. You're the best. She hugged me, and I forced myself not to pull away. Oh, I've been meaning to give you those tax documents I copied. They're in my house on the kitchen counter. Just use the spare key under the ceramic frog. She knew I knew. She had to. This was a game to her, seeing if I'd figured it out yet. Seeing if the old woman she'd been robbing would catch on before she disappeared. Have a safe trip, I managed. Thanks, Helen, take care of yourself. Something in her eyes then, a glimmer of, what? Amusement, victory, you've been like a mother to me. She got in her car and drove away. I stood in my driveway, clutching my folder of evidence, watching her disappear. Then I went inside and called 911. I need to report a theft, I said when the dispatcher answered. My neighbor has stolen my identity and over $200,000. The dispatcher took my information, said an officer would come by within the hour. I sat by my window, watching Brenda's empty driveway, wondering if I'd ever see her again. But I was wrong about one thing. She hadn't left the spare key under the ceramic frog. When the police arrived and I told them about the tax documents supposedly in her kitchen, we checked. No key. The house was locked tight. She's running, Officer Martinez said after I'd shown him my evidence. This is organized, sophisticated fraud. We need to contact the FBI's Elder Fraud Unit immediately. Elder fraud, the word stung. I'd become a statistic, one of those naive old people you read about who fall for obvious scams. Except this hadn't felt obvious. It had felt like friendship. As Officer Martinez made calls, I thought about all the times Brenda had sat in my kitchen, all the stories she'd told about her mother, her divorce, her struggles. Were any of them true? Or was I just a character in her con, an easy mark with a dead husband and distant children? Ma'am, Officer Martinez returned. We've put out an alert for her vehicle, and the FBI will be here tomorrow morning. In the meantime, have you contacted your banks, credit card companies? I shook my head. I didn't know where to start. He sat down across from me, his young face kind. Let's start making those calls together. The sooner we freeze everything, the better chance we have of recovering some of your money. Some of it, not all, maybe not even most. but some was better than none. As we began calling banks, I couldn't help but picture Brenda on a plane to Miami. Or maybe that was a lie too. Maybe she was driving to Canada or Mexico or just to another small town where another lonely widow was tending her garden, waiting for a friendly neighbor to move in next door. But I was wrong about her leaving. 2 days later, after hours with the FBI, after freezing every account I could find, after beginning the mountain of paperwork that comes with reclaiming your life, I saw her car in her driveway. She was back, or maybe she'd never left. I stood at my window, holding the FBI agent's business card, debating whether to call immediately. But something else took hold of me, a need to confront her, to hear her admit what she'd done. To see her real face, not the mask she'd worn for months. You see, I suppose after 70 years of avoiding conflict, of being polite, of keeping peace, I'd finally found my limit. I gathered the folder of evidence bank statements, credit reports, the spreadsheet I'd made documenting everything. My hands shook, but my resolve was firm. I walked across the lawn that separated our houses, up her porch steps, and knocked. She answered quickly, as if she'd been expecting me. No surprise on her face. Just that same warm smile, though I could see now it didn't reach her eyes. It never had. "Helen, how wonderful. I was just thinking about you. Come in, come in." I followed her into a living room I'd never seen before. She'd never invited me inside her house, I realized. I'd never questioned that oddity. The room was sparse, barely furnished. Like a stage set waiting to be struck. "Tea," she offered. "No." I stood in her living room, clutching my folder. "I know what you've done." Her smile didn't waver. "What I've done? Helen, are you feeling all right? You look pale." I opened the folder, hands trembling, and spread the papers on her coffee table. 23 credit accounts, $237,000 in debt, my tax refund stolen, my bank account emptied, a car I never bought, a lien on my house. She glanced at the papers, then back at me, still smiling. "Oh, Helen, this is obviously that identity theft we've been dealing with. Have you called the credit companies like I showed you?" The audacity of it took my breath. "Away. It was you. You did all of this." "Me," she laughed, that tinkling laugh I'd once found so pleasant. "Helen, I'm hurt. After everything I've done to help you, this is how you thank me." "Stop." My voice was stronger than I felt. "Just stop. I know it was you. The FBI knows it was you. They're investigating everything." That's when the mask finally slipped. Her smile faded, replaced by something cold and calculating. She leaned back in her chair, studying me like I was a specimen under glass. "The FBI," she repeated. "Well, that's unfortunate, though I doubt they'll find much. You gave me everything willingly, remember? Every password, every account number, every document. You practically begged me to handle your finances." "I trusted you." "Yes, you did." No warmth now, just matter-of-fact coldness. "Lonely old women always do. You're all the same, you know. Desperate for connection, for someone to need you, to make you feel relevant again. It's almost too easy." Each word was a knife, but I forced myself to stay standing, to keep looking at her. "How many others?" She shrugged. "Does it matter? Though you were particularly profitable. That house of yours, all that equity just sitting there, your excellent credit score, your predictable routines, you were perfect. I was your friend." That made her laugh, a genuine laugh this time, but ugly. "Friend? Oh, Helen, you were never my friend. You were a mark, a walking ATM. Though I'll admit you lasted longer than most. Usually they catch on after 50,000 or so, but you just kept trusting, kept believing, kept handing over more access." "Why?" The word came out as a whisper. "Why?" She stood, began pacing. "Because I can. Because you make it easy. Because while you sit in your old house, clutching your old memories, afraid of the modern world, people like me thrive in it. You didn't even know how to check your own bank balance online, Helen. You were begging to be robbed. I was kind to you. Yes, you were. The cookies were nice. The tea was lovely. The stories about your dead husband were touching, really. But kindness doesn't pay my bills, doesn't fund the life I deserve. I thought about the shopping bags I'd seen, the new car, the designer clothes. My life savings transformed into her lifestyle. The FBI will find you, I said. Maybe, but I doubt it. Brenda Matthews doesn't really exist, you know. She's just one of many names I use. By the time they unravel everything, I'll be someone else somewhere else. Maybe Linda Johnson in Phoenix, or Sarah Williams in Buffalo. Another widow there, I think. They're everywhere, you know, sitting ducks, all of them. She moved closer to me then, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Expensive. I realized now. Bought with my money. But here's the thing, Helen. Even if they catch me, even if I go to jail, you won't get your money back. It's gone. Spent. Scattered across dozens of accounts, converted to cash, used for things that can't be returned. Your credit is destroyed. That lien on your house, good luck fighting that in court at your age. You'll be dead before it's resolved. I wanted to argue, to fight back, but the words wouldn't come. Because underneath her cruelty was a kernel of truth. I was 70 years old. Court battles took years. Credit restoration took years. Years I might not have. You should go now, she said, her voice almost gentle. Go home, Helen, call your son. Maybe he'll let you move in with him. Elderly housing isn't that bad, I hear. And who knows? Maybe you'll make new friends, real ones this time. The dismissal was clear. I was nothing to her now, not even worth maintaining the pretense. I gathered my papers slowly, my arthritis making my fingers clumsy. She watched, amused, as I struggled to close the folder. Oh, Helen, she called as I reached the door. One more thing, thank you, really. You funded a lovely few months for me. That trip to Paris last month, magnificent. The shopping in Milan, divine, all thanks to you. I turned to look at her one last time. She stood in her barely furnished living room, beautiful and cold and utterly without remorse. You're evil, I said. No, she replied. I'm practical, you're just naive. I walked back across the lawn on legs that felt like water. Each step was an effort, not from age but from the weight of her words. Naive, a mark, a walking ATM. Is that all I'd been? Inside my house, I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. The folder of evidence slipped from my hands, papers scattering across the floor. For a moment, I considered leaving them there. What was the point? She was right. I was 70 years old. My money was gone. My credit was destroyed. My home, Robert's home, had a lien against it. I slid down to sit on the floor, something I hadn't done in years. My knees protested, but I didn't care. I sat among the scattered papers, showing the wreckage of my financial life, and cried. Not gent. La tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere primal. You see, I wasn't just crying for the money. I was crying for the friendship I'd thought was real, for the months of believing someone cared, for every cookie shared, every laugh exchanged, every moment when I'd felt less alone in the world. All of it had been a lie, every single moment calculated for profit. The phone rang. I ignored it. It rang again, and again. Finally, I crawled to it, my body protesting. Mom, David's voice tight with worry. I've been calling for hours. Are you okay? No, I said. The truth, simple and devastating. I'm booking a flight. I'll be there tomorrow. You don't need to. Yes, I do. Mom, the FBI called me. They told me what happened. Why didn't you call me? I almost laughed. Why hadn't I called him? Because I was ashamed. Because he'd warned me. Because admitting I'd been fooled so completely was almost worse than being robbed. I'm handling it, I said. No, Mom. We're handling it together. I'll be there by noon tomorrow." After he hung up, I sat in the gathering darkness. Brenda's words echoed. "Maybe you'll make new friends, real ones this time." The cruelty of it was exquisite. She'd poisoned not just my finances, but my ability to trust. But as I sat there, something else began to grow alongside the hurt. Anger. Clean, clarifying anger. She thought I was weak. Too old, too naive, too defeated to fight back. She dismissed me like I was already dead, just waiting for my body to catch up. I pulled myself up, joints protesting, and turned on the lights. The scattered papers looked different now. Not evidence of my foolishness, but weapons. Proof. Documentation of her crimes. I called Agent Martinez from the FBI. "Mrs. Winters, I was about to call you. We've been investigating Brenda Matthews. That's not her real name." "I know," she told me. "She told you," he sounded surprised. "When?" "Today, I confronted her. She admitted everything." I described our conversation, her coldness, her confidence that she'd get away with it. "Mrs. Winters, that was incredibly dangerous, but also incredibly helpful. Did you record the conversation?" My heart sank. No, I didn't think. "That's okay. Your testimony is still valuable. And Mrs. Winters, we've found something interesting. This isn't her first time in Portsmouth. She was here 5 years ago under a different name. An elderly man named George Whitman lost his life savings to a woman matching her description." "What happened to him?" A pause. "He passed away 6 months later. Heart attack, the records say, but his family always believed it was the stress of losing everything." George Whitman, another lonely elderly person, another life destroyed. How many others were there? How many Georges and Helens had she left in her wake? "We're building a federal case," Agent Martinez continued. "Interstate fraud, elder abuse, identity theft. With your evidence and testimony, we have enough for an arrest warrant. But Mrs. Winters, I need to be honest. She's right about one thing: recovering the money will be difficult." "I don't care about the money." The words surprised me, but they were true. "I care about stopping her from doing this to anyone else." That's very brave of you." Brave? I didn't feel brave. I felt old and foolish and violated. But maybe bravery wasn't about feeling fearless. Maybe it was about acting despite the fear. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Everything. Every document, every conversation you remember, every detail about her habits and routines. Can you do that?" "Yes," no hesitation now. "Yes, I can do that." I spent the rest of the night writing. Not just facts and figures, but everything. How she'd stood at my door with cookies. How she'd squeezed my hand when talking about her mother. How she'd made me feel capable and valuable before systematically destroying my life. By dawn, I had 20 pages of detailed notes. My hand cramped, my back ached, but I kept writing. Every memory was evidence. Every kindness was part of her pattern. You see, I suppose when someone thinks you're too old and weak to fight back, proving them wrong becomes its own form of justice. David arrived the next day, looking haggard but determined. He hugged me at the door, and I let myself be held like I hadn't since Robert's funeral. "We're going to fix this," he said. "She said I'd be dead before it was resolved." "Then we'd better work fast." A ghost of a smile. "Besides, Winter's women are tough. Grandma lived to 96, remember." We spent the day with Agent Martinez, building the case. David had brought his laptop, his knowledge of technology, his righteous anger on my behalf. Together, we were formidable. "She's still next door," I told them, still acting like nothing happened. Agent Martinez nodded. "Let her feel safe. The arrest will be more effective if she's not expecting it." That night, I saw Brenda's lights on. Was she planning Annath? Our escape, packing up her fake life to move on to the next victim? Or was she so confident in my powerlessness that she felt no need to run? I stood at my window, no longer the naive old woman she'd marked, but something else. A survivor, a witness, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Tomorrow, they would arrest her. Tomorrow, the woman who'd called me naive would learn. But tomorrow came with complications. Agent Martinez called at 7 in the morning. "Mrs. Winters, we have a problem. She's gone." My heart sank. When? Sometime during the night. Her car's gone, house is empty. But here's the interesting part: she left in a hurry, left things behind. Within an hour, my house was full of federal agents. They'd gotten a warrant to search Brenda's house, and what they found changed everything. "Mrs. Winters," Agent Martinez said, sitting across from me at my kitchen table. "We need to talk about what we discovered." David sat beside me, his hand on mine. I was grateful for his presence, his strength. "She's done this before," Agent Martinez continued. "Many times. We found documents, IDs, credit cards in different names. Elena Rodriguez in Phoenix, Sarah Whitfield in Burlington, Patricia Chen in Sacramento. At least 12 identities that we've found so far. 12 versions of Brenda, spreading across the country like a virus. But that's not all." He pulled out a laptop, turned it toward us. "She kept records, detailed records like trophies." The screen showed a spreadsheet. Names, ages, locations, amounts stolen. My name was near the bottom. Helen Winters, 70, Portsmouth, NH, $237,000. But it was the column next to the amount that made me gasp. Status: active incomplete. "Incomplete?" David asked. "She wasn't done with your mother. Based on her pattern, she typically extracts between 300,000 and 400,000 per victim. Your mother's credit and assets could have supported another 100,000 in theft, possibly more." I scrolled up the list. George Whitman was there. $340,000. Status: complete deceased. Margaret Foster, 82, Burlington, VT, $425,000. Status: complete relocated. Dorothy Chen, 77, Sacramento, CA, $380,000. Status: complete deceased. Name after name. Some marked deceased, some relocated, all marked complete. Lives destroyed, reduced to entries in a spreadsheet. "How long has she been doing this?" I whispered. "Based on the dates, at least 8 years, possibly longer. These are just the ones she documented." "And no one caught her." Agent Martinez's face was grim. "Elder fraud is underreported. Victims are often ashamed, or their families don't realize until it's too late. She chose her targets carefully, widowed, isolated, with good credit and assets. She never stayed in one place more than a year." "Until now," David said. "She stayed here longer." "Your mother was profitable." The agent looked uncomfortable saying it. "And based on these notes, she found your mother particularly easy to manipulate." I saw her notes about me. Lonely, trusting, tech-phobic, perfect mark, possible 400K plus extraction. Extraction, like I was a mine to be emptied. "But she made a mistake with Mom," David said. "Mom fought back." Agent Martinez nodded. "That's rare. Most victims are too devastated or ashamed. Your mother's willingness to confront her, to document everything, to testify, that's what's going to stop her." Over the next week, the investigation expanded. The FBI contacted victims across the country. Some were dead, but others were still alive, still carrying the shame and financial ruin Brenda had left behind. Margaret Foster in Burlington called me. Her voice was thin, tired. "She destroyed me," she said. "I lost my house, my savings, everything. I live with my daughter now. I thought I was the only one." "You weren't," I told her, "and we're going to stop her." We formed an unlikely support group, connected by phone and email. Survivors of Brenda or Elena or Sarah or whatever name she'd used. We shared our stories, our shame, our anger. Patricia Huang in Sacramento had kept photographs. She called herself Patricia Chen when she targeted my mother. The irony of stealing my mother's first name wasn't lost on me. She emailed pictures, Brenda with shorter hair, Brenda as a brunette, but always that same calculating smile. The FBI used facial recognition technology, cross-referencing with driver's licenses, passport applications, surveillance footage. Slowly, a pattern emerged. She follows a circuit, Agent Martinez explained, showing us a map dotted with pins. West Coast in winter, East Coast in summer, middle states in between, always targeting areas with large retirement populations. Like a migrating predator, David said. Exactly like that. They tracked her credit card, one of many in various names. She'd used it at a gas station in Pennsylvania, heading south. She's running for Florida, Agent Martinez said, probably planning to appear into the retirement communities there, find a new identity, start again. Unless we stop her, I said. The agent looked at me. Mrs. Winters, I need to ask you something. Would you be willing to testify, not just provide a statement, but actually appear in court, face her, tell your story to a jury? I thought about George Whitman, dead 6 months after losing everything. Dorothy Chen, also deceased. Margaret Foster, living with her daughter, too broken to fight. All the names on that spreadsheet, all the lives reduced to dollar amounts. Yes, I said, I'll testify. David squeezed my hand. We'll testify. I saw what she did to my mother. The manipulation, the calculated cruelty. The jury needs to hear that. Agent Martinez smiled for the first time since I'd met him. With your testimony and the evidence from her house, we can build a RICO case. Racketeering, interstate fraud, elder abuse, money laundering. We're talking serious federal time. 25 to life. 25 to life. It sounded like justice. But first, they had to catch her. The next days were a blur of preparation. I gave formal statements, reviewed evidence, looked at hundreds of photographs to identify items she'd bought with my money. Designer clothes, jewelry, vacations, my life savings transformed into her luxury. The other victims did the same. Together, we built an overwhelming case. 12 voices speaking as one, refusing to be silenced by shame. She picked the wrong generation to mess with, Margaret Foster said during one of our calls. We survived wars, depressions, raised families, buried husbands. We're tougher than she thought. She was right. Brenda had seen us as weak, naive, disposable, but we were survivors, and we were angry. The FBI tracked her to a motel outside Jacksonville. She dyed her hair red, was using the name Jennifer Walsh. She'd already made contact with a retirement community, was scheduled to view an apartment the next day. We're moving in tonight, Agent Martinez told me. With any luck, by tomorrow morning, Brenda Matthews, or whatever she's calling herself, will be in federal custody. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat by my window, looking at her empty house, thinking about all the women like me who might have been her next victim. The Jennifer Walsh identity would never claim them now. You see, I suppose when someone reduces you to a dollar amount on a spreadsheet, proving you're more than that becomes essential. We weren't just marks or extractions. We were mothers, grandmothers, survivors. And tomorrow, we would have our day. The call came at 6:47 a.m. We got her, Agent Martinez said. She's in custody. I sat down hard, phone pressed to my ear. She's really arrested. Pulled her out of that motel at 3 a.m. She tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Helen, she had 3 new identities on her, was already working on her next victim. You stopped her. After I hung up, I cried again. But these weren't the broken sobs from that day on my floor. These were tears of relief, of vindication, of something finally going right. David found me in the kitchen, tears streaming. "Mom." "They got her," I managed. "It's over." "No," he said gently. "Now it really begins." He was right. The arrest was just the start. The trial took 14 months to begin. 14 months of depositions, evidence reviews, and preparation. But those months weren't wasted. The other victims and I grew stronger, our support group becoming a force for change. Margaret Foster and I testified before the New Hampshire state legislature about elder fraud. Dorothy Chen's daughter spoke in California. Patricia Huang started a nonprofit to educate seniors about identity theft. We turned our pain into purpose. When the trial finally began, I was ready. I'd bought a new suit paid for with money David insisted on giving me. "You're not facing her in anything less than armor," he'd said. The courtroom was packed. Media had picked up the story, "The grandmother who fought back," they called me, though I disliked the title. I wasn't just a grandmother. I was a woman who'd been robbed and refused to accept it. Brenda, her real name was Jessica Thornton, we'd learned sat at the defense table. Orange jumpsuit instead of designer clothes. Her hair back to its natural brown, growing out gray at the roots. Without the expensive styling and makeup, she looked ordinary, tired. She didn't look at me when I took the stand. "State your name for the record," the prosecutor said. "Helen Winters." My voice was steady. I'd practiced this moment for months. I told my story from the beginning. The cookies, the computer help, the slow infiltration of my life. I showed the jury her spreadsheet, my name with that cruel notation. "Perfect mark." "How did you feel when you discovered the extent of the theft?" the prosecutor asked. "Violated," I said. But more than that, I felt stupid. She'd sat in my kitchen, eaten my food, pretended to care abo. Me, every kindness was a calculation. Every moment of friendship was a lie. "Objection," the defense attorney said. "Speculation about my client's feelings." Sustained. But the jury had heard me. I saw it in their faces, disgust, sympathy, anger on my behalf. The cross-examination was brutal. The defense attorney tried to paint me as senile, confused, willing to give Brenda access to my accounts. "Isn't it true you gave her your passwords voluntarily?" She was helping me. "Yes or no, Mrs. Winters? Did you give her your passwords?" "Yes, but..." "And you asked her to help with your finances." "She offered." "But you accepted that help." I felt myself shrinking, becoming the naive old woman Brenda had seen. Then I caught sight of Margaret Foster in the gallery. She nodded slightly, reminding me why we were here. "Yes, I accepted her help," I said, louder now. "Because I trusted her. Because she spent months building that trust specifically to steal from me. That's what predators do. They don't attack immediately. They groom their victims." The word predator hung in the air. The defense attorney moved on. Other victims testified. Margaret Foster, dignified despite needing a walker now. Patricia Huang's daughter, speaking for her deceased mother. 6 others who'd flown in from across the country. But the most damaging testimony came from Brenda herself. Against her lawyer's advice, she took the stand. Perhaps she thought she could charm the jury like she'd charmed us. But without her props, the warm smile, the designer clothes, the helpful demeanor, she was exposed. "I provided a service," she said when questioned about her actions. "These women were lonely, struggling with technology, overwhelmed by modern life. I helped them." "By stealing their life savings?" the prosecutor asked. "By managing their finances. They compensated me for my time." $237,000 from Mrs. Winters alone. That's quite a compensation. She could afford it. I heard gasps from the gallery. Even her own attorney winced. The prosecutor pounced. "She could afford it. Based on what? Your assessment of her assets while you were stealing her identity." Brenda's mask slipped just for a moment. The cold calculation showed through. Based on her house value, her retirement accounts, her excellent credit, she was sitting on resources she didn't even know how to use. So you decided to use them for her. Someone would have. At least I was nice about it. Nice about it. The words sealed her fate. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. 43 separate charges including interstate fraud, elder abuse, identity theft, money laundering, and racketeering. At sentencing, the judge allowed victim impact statements. I stood, my prepared speech in hand, but when I looked at Brenda Jessica, the words I'd written seemed inadequate. You called me naive, I said instead. Said I was a perfect mark. You were right, I was naive. I believed in kindness, in friendship, in helping neighbors. You used that against me. But here's what you didn't understand: naivety isn't weakness, it's hope. And you tried to steal that too. I paused, gathering strength. You reduced me to a dollar amount on a spreadsheet, but I'm more than that. We all are. We're mothers, grandmothers, teachers, nurses, women who have lived full lives. You saw us as easy targets, but we're survivors. And we survived you too. The judge sentenced her to 35 years in federal prison. She'll be eligible for parole when she's 78, older than many of her victims. As they led her away, she finally looked at me. No smile now, no warmth, just the blank stare of someone who'd lost everything. I felt no satisfaction in that look, just a deep sadness for the waste of it all. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. How does it feel to have justice? One asked. It doesn't give me my money back, I said. It doesn't erase the months of lies, but it stops her from doing this to anyone else. That's enough. David drove me home to Portsmouth. Brenda's house had been sold, a young family moving in. I watched children playing in the yard where she'd loaded her car with my purchases. You okay, Mom? David asked. I will be. And I was. Slowly, painfully, expensively, I rebuilt my credit. The lien on my house was removed after a long legal battle. Insurance covered some losses. I'll never recover everything, but I recovered enough. More importantly, I recovered myself. The woman who'd sat on the floor crying among scattered papers was gone. In her place was someone harder, perhaps, but also stronger. I still make cookies for new neighbors. I still believe in kindness. But now I also believe in passwords I create myself, in checking my credit report, in trusting but verifying. You see, I suppose when someone tries to steal your faith in humanity, the greatest revenge is keeping it anyway. Just with better secure it. Why measures? It's been 2 years now since that day. I stood at my window, watching Brenda carry shopping bags bought with my money. 2 years since I learned that kindness could be a weapon and friendship could be a con. But here's what Jessica Thornton, in all her calculated cruelty, didn't understand. You can steal money, you can steal identity, you can even steal trust. But you can't steal the lessons that come from surviving it. I still live in my house in Portsmouth, the one she tried to steal with forged documents and false signatures. Every morning, I tend Robert's roses, and they bloom just as beautifully as they did before she entered my life. Beauty persists, despite those who try to poison it. The support group we formed continues to meet monthly. We've helped dozens of seniors recognize the warning signs, protect themselves, reclaim their power. Margaret Foster likes to say we're like antibodies now strengthened by exposure, ready to fight off the next infection. My story isn't unique. Elder fraud steals billions each year from people who worked their whole lives to build something, only to have it ripped away by someone who saw their kindness as weakness. But we're not weak. We're just human. And being human means believing in connection, even when it makes us vulnerable. If you're watching this, if my story sounds familiar, know this. It's not your fault. The shame belongs to the thief, not the person who dared to trust. And if you're sitting on evidence, too embarrassed to act, remember, your courage could save the next victim. Have you or someone you love faced a betrayal that shook you to your core? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters. Your experience could help someone else recognize the warning signs. If this story opened your eyes or touched your heart, please like this video and share it with others who need to hear it. Subscribe to our channel for more true stories of resilience, survival, and the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. And remember, the best revenge against those who try to steal your faith in humanity is to keep that faith alive, just with wisdom earned through experience. You're stronger than you know.